Hello, welcome to the France 24 interview. Well, they say a week is a lifetime in politics. In the case of Dominique Strauss-Kahn, it may feel more like several lifetimes. Just a week ago, many believed that the former IMF chief was all but politically dead and buried, as he faced charges that he had sexually assaulted a hotel housekeeper in New York. Now, today, after a stark turn in the case, the hotel housekeeper's credibility is suddenly in doubt, and Strauss-Kahn is free without bail. Yet, the charges still stand. And now, there's a French writer who says she will file a lawsuit accusing Strauss-Kahn of attempted rape nearly a decade ago. Now, despite all this, there are many French who still say they would like to see Strauss-Kahn enter the race for the French presidency next year and run. And that might seem a little bit lost in cultural translation if you're watching from outside France. My guest today might be able to lend some clarity. Welcome, Elaine Sciolino. You are a Paris correspondent here for the New York Times, and you've just come out with a new book, a very timely book, on the art of seduction French style. I think our viewers can see it up there on their screens. I'd like to cut to the chase here. It seems a little bit extraordinary that a man who is still technically facing charges for attempted rape would still be someone that nearly half of all French want to see as their next president, or at least run.
Well, yes, exactly, and that's the difference, perhaps. I mean, if the French were asked in this poll whether or not Dominique Strauss-Kahn should have the right to run for president, and as good citizens, they said, why not? Or at least a few percent more said, yes, he should have the right to run, than those who said, no, we really would prefer that he doesn't run.
I think it was 45% said they wouldn't want to see him back in.
But this is a dramatic soap opera a la Française, and it's changing every day. And with every day, you've got new revelations, and who knows where we're going to be a week from now. As you say, a week is a lifetime in politics. I mean, for the moment, yes, it's not at all surprising. If Dominique Strauss-Kahn is guilty of nothing, should he have the right to run, and should the people of France have the right to judge as adults whether they want him as the next president or not?
But let me ask you this. Let's pretend that all the charges are dropped tomorrow. He is totally free and clear. He can do what he wants. Isn't this a man who has a past record, at least of questionable behavior towards women? Isn't this something that should give many French at least pause to question themselves?
Absolutely. But even before we get there, what does it mean to have all the charges dropped? Even if the criminal charges are dropped, the hotel maid has the right to file a civil claim against him. And the burden of proof in the United States is much different in a civil case. It's much lower. In a criminal case, you need 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt to say this man is guilty. In a civil case, it's only a majority of, it's 50.1% basically of proof has to be on the side of the person making the accusation. So he may not be free and clear in terms of his reputation. I would also argue that in terms of what's happening here in France, this case opened a conversation. I call it a turning point. I call it France's Anita Hill moment, which was the moment 20 years ago when Anita Hill charged Clarence Thomas with sexual harassment, and when he was up for the Supreme Court, yeah. And it transformed the political debate in America between men and women.
Do you fear, do you have any concerns that Anita Hill moment, as you call it, might be compromised now, that there might be sort of maybe a male backlash saying to these women, I told you so. You see, I told you so.
Absolutely, but it's part of the debate. The fact is, the box has been opened and you can't close it again. As you said earlier, Dominique Strauss-Kahn's behavior, whether you approve of it or not, whether you believe in vie privée, private life or not, has been called into question. It's up to the citizens of France to decide, do they want this person as president or even involved in politics?
But I'm still wondering, because we're talking about how there's been a change now, the debate has been opened up, that this Anita Hill moment, and yet so quickly, this is what strikes me as an outsider at least, so quickly, how they're already talking about him re-entering politics. Shouldn't there be sort of a sit down and pause and reflect period here?
Absolutely. But this is something that's in the nature of French politics, that it's either black or white. She's either a saint or a sinner. He's either a noble hero or he's a rapist. We have very little tolerance for anything in between. And perhaps we in the media are guilty of this as well in terms of looking at extremes. But in France, the dialectic is French, so that you have a polemique going on, a debate, and the result may not be known for quite some time.
How do you think this case would have played out in the United States if you had an American politician, say, under similar circumstances? Would they be able to bounce back quickly? Would they be forced into sort of an exile for a little while? What do you think the main difference would be?
Well, first of all, Strauss-Kahn hasn't bounced back quickly. It really is an open question how this great drama is going to play out. So I would reserve judgment on saying exactly where we're going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks from now. In America, he would be toast because in the United States we're considered puritanical, moralistic. We would not tolerate the fact that a political leader could come out of a shower and be nude, which he has been accused of being, and have even consensual sex with a chambermaid, because it would reflect badly on his judgment, which is the most important element in a political leader. It would comport badly in terms of his relationship with his wife. And in America, the relationship with your wife is much more important, because if you betray your wife, you're going to betray the American people.
And it's also, I guess, a question of his self-discipline and a sort of hedonistic impulse as well.
Yes, this man was just about ready to announce that he was going to run for president, and then he had some sort of sexual encounter with a hotel maid. And you have to say, what was he risking? What was he thinking at that moment?
And it's interesting, maybe he just thought he's gotten away with it in the past. I'm speculating. I could get away with it again. He had a sense of invulnerability.
It's
perhaps
the makings of a Shakespearean tragedy, hubris.
I want to ask you about the French journalist, and writer Tristan Banon, who we found out she plans to file charges essentially accusing Dominique Strauss-Kahn of a very similar episode,
Yes.
attempted rape. Now, this dates back nearly a decade. We're not even sure they will be able to stand in court.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
She is a young writer and journalist who interviewed Strauss-Kahn twice in 2003. The first interview went just fine. In the second interview, she charges that he sexually assaulted her and attempted to rape her. The challenge for her case is that she didn't come forward for several years, and when she first came forward in an interview in 2007, she did it on a reality television show with candlelight and wine and a fancy dinner, and her testimony was not given the gravitas that it might have been had it been in a more serious setting.
Lack credibility, perhaps. The same issue we're seeing right now with this housekeeper.
A question of her judgment. But again, let's not blame the victim. She was a young woman. She was on a reality TV show. She was put in an extraordinarily difficult situation because suddenly she's being asked all these questions. And would it have been better in retrospect if she had stood up and said, this doesn't feel good. I think I'm going to leave here because this atmosphere is not serious enough. She didn't. Is it going to hurt her case? Should it come to trial? We'll have to see.
There's this issue here. Do you think other women, even French women, might be deterred now from coming forward? There's this whole issue of credibility. We saw how the defense made such an issue of undermining the credibility of this hotel housekeeper. It's almost impossible, isn't it, to find the absolutely perfectly credible rape victim or attempted rape victim?
Absolutely. Everybody has a history.
How do you prosecute a case like that?
With difficulty, but we're all human. I mean, why do you think in the United States it took so many years before women got strong enough to file rape charges against men? I mean, I started covering rape cases in the mid-1970s in the Midwest United States, where the first thing a woman did if she were raped was to shower, put on fresh clothes, and not tell anybody for a long time. Women had to be consciousness raised to go right to the police, save any evidence that there possibly could have been, so that should she decide, the woman or the women decide later to file charges, there would be evidence.
It's taken a lot of work to get there.
Absolutely.
We are running out of time, but I want to ask you, you were in the past couple of days at a conference of feminists here in France, and what struck you most from the people you spoke to there? The sense, I guess, what has changed most in the dialogue you had as a result of this whole DSK case, the Strauss-Kahn affair?
Right. There was a conference about an hour outside of Paris at the University of Evry of 40 feminist groups, and they came together and they basically said that they will remain committed to changing the conversation, pressing women not to approve of dirty jokes in the workplace or sexist remarks about the way they're dressed, or kissing if they don't feel like kissing someone, of using the familiar tu if they don't, and on a much more important level, to raise women's consciousness so that they will report sexual violence or family abuse.
So a real determination then on the part of these women, it seems, that they're not going to go back. This is the point of no return in this debate.
That is my strong view.
Elaine Sciolino, Paris correspondent for the New York Times, thank you very much for speaking to me today about what is still a very uncertain case, uncertain outcome. We're all waiting. We've been talking about the Dominique Strauss-Kahn case, the latest twists and turns, still facing charges of attempted rape, although he is free without bail for now. Thank you all very much for watching the interview here on France 24.